What's up, guys? This is Justin, Movie Homicide. Today is a highly anticipated review. I'm talking about one of my favorite movies of all time, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Day. And let me start off by saying, like Ash Williams in my first Evil Dead review, I screwed up the incantations. My mind, I apologize, was going a million miles a minute, so that's why I put it in the description box. The correct incantations: Kanda, Strata, Montes, Kanda, you know. But that's, you know, people make mistakes. So. But anyway, getting to the review, man, I love this movie so much. Like, this is one I would rent Blockbuster all the time, to the point I ended up just buying it. Anyway, one sec. So I got, the copies, this was my first copy. This is the DVD. It's like DVD. And then later on, I got the FY exclusive Steelbook to upgrade to Blu-ray. This is the FY exclusive Steelbook. It's got like Ash on there. It's a DVD Blu-ray combo pack, but this is my favorite version of Evil Dead 2 I own. But yeah, so the movie starts out, I mean, by the way, this is going to be an extreme spoiler review, just a heads up, so if you haven't seen Evil Dead 2, I'd just say skip this review, but if you have, welcome. Anyway, it starts out, there's like, I believe it's Nobi, he's like near talking, and it's like, legend has it, you know, so I won't say it word for word, but you know what I mean. It was written by the Dark Ones, Necronomicon Exodus, roughly translated the Book of the Dead. But you know, and it has like all these cool stop motion scenes in the opening scenes. I'm a sucker for that. It starts with that. It's like, the seas ran red with blood. It was this blood that was used to ink the book. And yeah, so it goes into that, and then it says Evil Dead 2. And then once it goes into that, like the credits, Ash, it shows Ash pulling up in his Delta, and he's like with another Linda, I guess. Yeah, he dates multiple Lindas. You find that out in Ash vs. Evil Dead. Spoiler. It's kind of funny that he acknowledges that. Yeah, so he's with another Linda, and I don't know why he's going back to the cabin. You think he would have learned his lesson the first time, but yeah, he goes back to the cabin. So it's like, why, Ash? But yeah, so he goes there. You know, he's like hitting on Linda. Let's have some champagne, huh, baby? And that cheesy dialogue Bruce Campbell has, but it's fun. So he goes to the, he finds the Necronomicon, and by it is, you know, the, I forgot what that thing's called. It's like, it had Nobi's audio on it, and you know what I'm talking about. I just can't remember it right now, but what it's called. But, yeah, he like plays it, and then you know, the incantations happen, and then Linda, like, you know, the unseen force attacks her through the window, and he drops his champagne. It's a cool scene. And he goes out to check on her, and fortunately she's a deadite. But, he chops her head off with the shovel, and then like buries her, puts like a wooden crucifix on her grave under the moonlight. Man, and then like, so I'm trying to remember everything, so I'm trying to be in depth, but yeah. So that happens, and then I think he like ends up like driving like the Delta into the like to the bridge, and he finds out the bridge is closed, and he's like, "No!" It's kind of funny, but then like there's a shot of the moon, like it's a big moon. It's going down so fast. It's a really cool shot. This whole movie is just kind of a roller coaster of cool shots. Is the way I could describe it. And yeah, so that happens, and then he's like, "Oh man, I'm going through this again." Well, you shouldn't have gone back to the cabin. That's all I'm saying. But according to Bruce Campbell, from an interview I've heard, he said that this movie's kind of like a requel. It's a sequel, but it's a requel, if that makes sense. So you know that shot at the end of The Evil Dead where the last scene, Ash gets tackled by the unseen force, and then the credits roll. But after that, like Bruce Campbell says, there's a scene in Evil Dead 2, if you remember, it's kind of like that where Ash is flying through the trees, spinning around like all those cool camera angles, and then hits the tree and falls into the puddle, turns into a dead-eyed evil Ash, if you will, and then he like howls, ooh, and after that, like he goes back to normal Ash, like you'll see this cool like islands, but yeah, that's what I was told, like or what I heard from Bruce, like it's like you cut that scene at The Evil Dead, and then that final scene before the credits roll where Ash gets hit by the unseen force. After that, like there's another scene, if you play the scene where he's spinning around in Evil Dead 2, it's kind of like continuing where that one left off, if that makes sense. But yeah, I could see that. So that happens, and then after that, I remember he gets chased in the Delta by the unseen force once the sun sets, and then I think he like hits something and he goes flying through the windshield and hits the tree. But once he does that, he's kind of disoriented and kind of bleeding. Then the unseen force has this cool camera shot that Sam Raimi does, and it goes like through the back window of the Delta, through the Delta to the front windshield. That was really cool how Sam did that shot. This whole movie's just, like I said, a roller coaster of cool shots. So Ash gets chased into the cabin. If I remember, there's this cool scene where he's like running from the unseen force, like through all these doorways in the cabin and crevices. He ends up like hiding in the fruit cellar, and outsmarts the unseen force. It was pretty cool. So around that point, I think what happens, if I remember, is he ends up. This is where he gets his chainsaw and shotgun, and he starts like getting his arsenal ready. His main two weapons, the Hefe's blade, the chainsaw, and then the boomstick. So yeah, that's where that comes to play. Yeah, and then there's another scene where like Linda comes out of the grave, and there's this cool like stop motion animation scene. There's a lot of this in this movie. It's in the first movie show at the end. There's a lot more progressing in this one. So yeah, Linda's dancing under the moonlight, her rotted corpse, and then I remember she disappears for a second, and then Ash is like looking out the window, and then all of a sudden she pops up and scares him, scares the bejesus out of him, and she's like, "Dance with me." Yeah. And at one point, like the head falls, like he's like sitting in the rocking chair. The head falls in his lap, Linda's head, and then like bites his right hand. This is where things get interesting. Bites his right hand, and yeah, so he's like, it gets infected. When my hand went bad, it's like doing all this, He's like, give me back my hand. Give me back my hand. And then after that, like, I remember there's this one shot where he's like looking in the mirror, and yeah, he's like looking in the mirror, and then like the other evil Ash, I guess, like pops out and like, we just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. Does that sound fine? And then after that, yeah, eventually, like, he has to like cut his hand off because it's like possessed by Linda's bite, and so what happens is he gets the chainsaw, and because there's all a scene where he's like, the hands is screwing him up, flipping him around, he's breaking plates on his head. Once Ash is like, I'm not having no more of that, he's like, he sticks the knife in his hand, he's that's right, who's laughing now? Who's laughing now? And he like takes the chainsaw, cuts his hand off, and like blood sprays all over his face, classic shot. So he ends up like taking the hands and then like putting it in like a wastebasket and then putting books on top of it. And he's like, here's your new home. so like, yeah. So what he does, the Boy Scout that Ash Williams is he takes a sock, he puts it on his bloody stump, he tapes that up. He doesn't need to go to the hospital. He's a fucking king. He's the Hefe. So he's just, he's a Boy Scout. He tapes it up with a sock on his bloody stump. And once he does that, like the hand eventually gets out. It's like running around all the house, and there's like this Tom and Jerry moment, cat and mouse. And once he does that, it's like he has to like shoot all like where it is. It's like popping out. It ends up like flipping him off, like giving him the finger. The hand, the severed hand, and so that happens, and then there's this really cool shot. I watched I like to watch Eli Roth's podcast, History of Horror, on Shudder, and they had Bruce Campbell on. I mentioned this in my last one, possibly, but so Bruce said Sam had these guys in this particular scene that was like pumping gallons of blood like through the walls, because there's like the blood sprays through the walls at Ash. It's like gallons, and that happens. I guess Bruce said Sam was just pumping the blood, and like Bruce had to like shower almost every day for he couldn't get the blood out of his like clothes. It was like caked on this fake blood. But yeah, so getting back to the story, that happens, and then it just like fills the cabin with blood, and then it sucks back into the hole. So that happens. I'm trying to remember what else happens. Eventually, like, so Nobi's daughter comes to the cabin eventually, but she thinks that Ash killed her parents, but that's not true. And Jake, I love that guy, played by Danny Hicks. Rest in peace, Danny. I met him at a horror convention. He was a very sweet guy, very nice guy. I also met like Ted Raimi, who's also in this movie. He plays Henrietta, and he had a miserable time in that suit, that fat suit, that Henrietta suit. He was like sweating. You can read all about it, but yeah, Ted, and then you got Bobby Joe, who's I forgot her name. I just can't remember it, so I'm sorry. But yeah, Bobby Joe, she was at the horror convention too. So I met like 3 of the people from Evil Dead 2. So yeah, Danny Hicks, Jake, he and Bobby Joe, and Nobi's daughter appear at the cabin, and then he's just like punching Ash. He thinks he murdered somebody, but they had to throw him in the fruit cellar, and then that's eventually like it's this one scene where Nobi's like, I buried her in the cellar. My God, I helped bury her in the floor of the fruit cellar. And then that's when Henrietta pops up. It's like stop motion. and it's Ted Raimi, but Ash just screams like a girl in that scene. He's like, ah. And then he's like, "Let me out! There's something down here!" And eventually, it's like, "I'll swallow your soul." And there's a little cool claymation scene that pops up. They end up getting him out, and there's like puppetry, and there's like an eyeball. Like Ash steps on the cellar door and smashes Henrietta's eye out, and it goes into Bobby Joe's mouth, which is kind of comedic. So that happens. There's another scene. There's another person with them. I'm just gonna say Ed because they call him Evil Ed, but he ends up becoming a Deadite, and Ash chops him up eventually with an axe. He does it one-handed with left hand with his bloody stump.